At one point, you're a school teacher, and then you come to your folks and you say, "Oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to become a UFC fighter." Tell me a little bit about your father's response to that.
My dad went back to university at a later age in life. He was one of them screw off teenagers that barely graduated high school. And honestly, his teachers probably graduated him just so they wouldn't have to deal with him the following year. But he went back to university, I would say in his early 30s. And my father had four children at that time, working one full time job, a part-time job at like a local convenience store slash gas station. When we grew up poor, man, my father on Saturdays would umpire softball games for extra money. Anytime we would go to the softball fields by our house, my brother and I would walk the railroad tracks next to the road on the way to the softball fields and pick up aluminum cans. And then we would scour the softball fields for aluminum cans. And we would take that back to the refineries for, the refunds that you would get for the aluminum. Life was really quite difficult for him now, bearing the burden of not only being a father but and a provider for the household, but also going back to school as well. So my dad was this example of what hard work really was and dedicating yourself to something. So he and I ended up graduating university the same year. Basically, I went to University of Cincinnati. He was a UC graduate as well, and he was so proud of me. I didn't want to go to my university to get the diploma, the graduation ceremony. I didn't want to go, and my father basically made me go. He pretty much threatened my life. It's like, if you don't go, it's either go or death is essentially my choices. I have one picture that I have of my dad, and I'll never forget. He like standing next to me, has his arm around me, and he's got like a denim button-up shirt on, full Canadian tuxedo, brother, with a Beatles Ticket to Ride tie. And he's got his arm around me, just like with the biggest smile on his face because I had my diploma. So that was the pinnacle of success for my father. And I decided to be a teacher. My dad wanted me to take the MCATs and go into medicine because he was studying to be a nurse. And he's like, "Look, you're the smartest kid. Like you could actually be a doctor." And I just didn't want to be a doctor. I wanted to work 9 months out of the year. I'm lazy, right? Which is odd given what I've accomplished in life. But it's a true statement when you think about it. I've always tried to figure out how I can work the least amount of time, and fighting seemed to be the way to do that because I didn't actually ever have to work a job. I was teaching after I got my degrees. I started teaching, and I was at the beginning of my fourth year of teaching. And you have to rewind the clock back to what the world of MMA was like in 2002 when I told my dad this, because the thought of creating enough income to manage household bills was just not that it wasn't even on the radar. And so I told my dad no too. I said, "I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna become a professional MMA fighter. Like I'm gonna go fight in the UFC." He looked at me and with this look of like, I think my father wanted to punch me. And had I told him that I wanted to do ballet or any other wild dream that I would have had, he probably would have punched me. But given the skill set that I had, he looked like he wanted to punch me and he second thought the decision at the time. And I could see this disappointment in his eyes, which is what makes the other story that I told you about one of my favorite moments when my dad told me how proud he was, because it circles back to that moment in my life. In his mind, I was just throwing away my career, my education. In my mind, I was like, well, I'll go do this. And even if it doesn't pan out, I had my degrees. I had finished my master's degree. I was set. And I had degrees in mathematics. So I could go back. Like finding a job teaching math is easy. Every district needs math teachers. So for me, it was just like, this would be easy to return to. But my dad at that moment saw me as making this unrealistic, stupid decision. And when I look at it at this age now and I think back, if I was in my father's shoes, I would look at me and be like, what are you thinking? Like your brain isn't scrambled, your head is intact, you have all your teeth, you have a degree, like, you have a career, you're putting away in your retirement accounts, like you're creating that future. This is what we worked for. We're stopping this generational poverty that we've been a part of, and you just want to go play fight with people. I could see why my dad would have thought that way, but yeah. So I told him, I said, "Well, this is what I'm going to do." So when you fast forward the clock to him being in Vegas, watching me defend my title, and him telling me how proud I was, it brought even more meaning to that moment in my life.